the Community Agencies Allocation Committee will come to order. A draft of the minutes from the last meeting on February 18th was sent to you on March 1st via email by Renee Williams. Are there any corrections or questions to the minutes as distributed?
No.
If there are no corrections, the minutes, can I get a motion to move that we accept the minutes as distributed?
So moved.
Second.
Second the motion.
All right, everybody in agreement, say aye.
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 Aye, okay. Before our meeting today, do we have any new business or unfinished business announcements that we need to discuss other than the agenda? Renee?
No, we do not.
Okay. So our next order of business, and you had this on the agenda, Renee, is to approve the COC recommendations for ESG funding with Sharon, Sharika, and Sharika.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll let you take over here so you can take your minutes in the order that you have it on your paper.
Okay. Next, we'll have Sharika Floyd to come to give us, to talk to us about the ESG funding for requests for fiscal year 23.
Renee, is it possible to share my screen?
You should be. If not, you want to send it to me.
Okay, it's saying it's disabled. I send it to you. It says host disabled participant sharing.
Okay, I'm waiting on it to scan.
Okay. So we are reviewing the city and state emergency solutions grants funds. With the city and state emergency solutions grant funds, these are otherwise known as ESG. They, the street and shelter outreach combined funding for HUD is limited to no more than 60% of the total awarded funds. We currently don't know the actual amount of funds that we will receive, so the recommendations that we will review will be based on the estimated funding from the previous year. Previously, we received $211,432 in state ESG and $188,505 in city ESG funds for a total amount of $400,017 for the fiscal year 22. Shelters in the COC can only receive ESG funds for shelter operations. Our annual COC grant funds is not used for these programs. Therefore, 60% of ESG is usually recommended to go to shelter services and shelter operations. When reviewing applications and deciding on funding, the rating panel considers the funded agency's ability to raise other funds, if they are able to expend all funds, if they were able to expend all the funds in the past, and the amount of individuals they have been able to serve and they are able to serve in the future. The rating panel can partially fund a project and let the agency raise other funds if needed. If overall funding for either city or state ESG increases or decreases, the difference will be applied to programs proportionate to the panel's recommendation. In our funding for the fiscal year 2023, we did have new applicants apply and some reoccurring agencies did not apply. So for the sheet that you have on your screen, the recommendations that we have for this fiscal year 2023, the Bethesda Center for fiscal year 2022 applied for shelter operations. This year, they did not apply for shelter operations. Instead, they applied for the eligible category of street outreach. And the rating panel recommended an amount of $50,000. City with Dwellings is our street outreach. They received $32,000 last year, and they applied for the same for this year, and they were recommended $36,000. ESR shelter, they were recommended for $16,352, which is the amount they applied for and the amount they received last year. Family services applied for state ESG and not CDSG as they have done in the past. The rating panel recommended $25,710, which is an increase in their state funding. The City of Winston-Salem and United Way has worked collaboratively over the past 5 months with providing shelter, motel vouchers to homeless families when there is not enough space in our current family shelters. And we have done that with city and state ESG funds from COVID that were reallocated from other programs who failed to spend them. So we're looking to, the rating panel suggested that we continue that program and did city ESG in the amount of $7,018 and state ESG in the amount of $9,086. Samaritan Ministries Shelter Operations, they have a recommendation of $18,982 and $25,710 for state ESG, which is the same that they requested as well as the same that they received last year. And United Way Citywood Dwellings Overflow, a recommendation of an increase to $33,585. The Overflow shelter is the winter shelter that is ran by Citywood Dwellings with help from United Way during the colder months for individuals that are sleeping outside. The shelter process is a little different than the current shelters because the shelter is only open when temperatures drop below 32 degrees. Then we have our United Way Data Coordination, HMIS. The HMIS system is the Homeless Management Information System. This is the way that we track data for our homeless programs. And United Way, a recommendation of $41,123 for data coordination. And then we have our rapid rehousing. Rapid rehousing is short-term rental assistance that is provided to residents who are homeless and who have found housing in the rapid rehousing program. With United Way, we have a recommendation of $55,000 for city ESG and $43,451 for state ESG. Positive Wellness Alliance is a new agency that has applied for state ESG funds. They were awarded our HOPWA funds under another grant, which provides services for individuals with AIDS. And this is the same thing that they're looking to do under the rapid rehousing grant. And they were recommended for $38,000 under city ESG. Could you go down a little bit, Renee? Thank you. So it brings our total of the city ESG funding to $188,585, with 50% going to shelters. And then our state ESG to $211,432, with exactly 60% going to shelter services.
I have a question. Salvation Army did not apply this year?
No, Salvation Army did not apply for city or state ESG funds.
Wow.
Yeah. Is that good?
So
is that good that they didn't?
I can't say if it's good or bad. They still are able to apply for COC funds and other funds as they become available. But for the city and state ESG, they wouldn't receive the shelter operations for that. But they are still able to apply for other grants as they become available.
Okay. All right, so the total amounts that you have here in yellow, are they within range of what you have in your budget? Or are you over or under?
So as stated previously, we don't know our budget.
Okay.
So we go by the budget from previous years. So we wouldn't know exactly how much we're awarded until November.
Okay. All right, so I guess the next task for this group is to approve. First of all, do you have any comments or questions about the proposed budget as presented to us today? Okay, So I guess the next order of business is to approve the recommendations for ESG funding. And can I get a motion?
Is this for year 2023 or 2022? I missed that.
This is 2023.
2023, okay. I make a motion that this body approve recommendations for ESG funding for year 2023.
All right.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Ward.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so our next order of business today is to discuss new applications for Soar. Again, Renee, I have a list here, and sometimes it's not in the same order as you have them. So since you're capturing the notes, I would just let you call them out. Take the lead to just call out the application, and I'll ask the person to discuss it. So on my list, I would have Boys to Men mentorship. Right, okay, so we'll go there.
Yes, I have it up for you.
Okay,
All right. Boys to Men, asking for $20,000. Am I correct? Yeah. For a project called More Than a Conqueror Incorporated, funds to be used for lunch vouchers, reinforced programs and attendance, prevent incarceration by developing social and coping skills, monthly dinners and outings and things of that, and they are part of the city's strategic plan for safe and secure community. Their main goal was to reduce truancy, alcohol, and drug use of minors, relatively small budget. And they're asking to serve, they're saying that they'll serve 35 participants. Normally, I would not score this proposal very high. I don't know why I'm feeling pretty charitable this year, especially when I looked at what the city, the score that the city gave. But I like what they do. I've liked what they've done in the past, even though it's a small group and a small budget, reaching a small group of folk. But if we can help somebody. So I gave them a 93, and I recommended full funding based on the budget.
all right.
And
Who
I'm
else?
curious to hear my partner, what she said about this.
Who had,
That
who
was
else signed that?
Shannon Little.
I had it. I'm Shannon Little. I'm sorry. I'm
Okay.
as Joyful Soul Treasures. And one of the things that I've seen in the Boys to Men program is that they're really out here trying to reduce the truancy dramatically with young men. And I thought that that was going to be very beneficial. Having a young man myself, one of the things that I've noticed even in his own schools, that's something that's really needed. So if they're doing something, in the nature of our young men being taken care of, I think that would be, a great funding project.
I'm curious, Renee, why the city, do you know why the city scored it so low? And a lot of times, we went back and forth over the years, Madam Chairman, about the way proposals are written and all of that, and constantly being told it's not necessarily so much, the way they're written, because a lot of times we didn't like the way they were set up and they were written. But why did the city, why the city scored it so low, Renee?
The staff said that the application is significantly underdeveloped and requires further information before I can confidently recommend funding.
Have we gone back to them to see if they could change the application or enhance it?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Not for this year.
Okay.
So on the sheet that we have, the score was 7. So
Mhm.
if you take the average CAAC score, we come up with an 83.
Okay,
Correct how we see it on the screen, Renee?
Yes.
Okay,
okay,
all right.
okay.
So both of you recommended funding? So
Yes,
Yes.
we'll record that as recommended funding at the rate of $20,000, you all?
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Our next applicant is Eliza's Helping Hands.
Okay, so Eliza's Helping Hands, that's me, Barbara. I gave them a total score of 81, recommend for funding. I said the application has improved over the years. And I wrote in mine, would like to know from city staff if all the required documents have been submitted, which was a problem in the past. I looked through the documents and I'm thinking if this score is, see on our sheet, we had 72, 74.
Yes, and that's what the staff scored it. But they did not give any comments as to why.
Okay. I thought it was what they're offering to do is this mental health counseling and support to people who can't afford it is very timely. I know that this applicant has been before us before, and there, we continue to give the $5,000 to develop all the required documents. And as I looked through, I saw those documents. So I'll stay with my score of 81 unless there's some inside information that I wasn't privy to in terms of not being fully have all the appropriate documentation.
I believe for last year, or this current fiscal year, they received $5,000 is what we had available in the funding to be able to give them.
Okay. So did I share that with anyone? Anybody else have Eliza's?
Yes, Barbara, I had Eliza's Helping Hands. I thought it was a really good organization. I think they had a lot of goals, but I was kind of concerned with them having that many goals and not enough staff to even attempt to accomplish some of what they were trying to do. And I know that part of the money that they're asking for is to, hire another counselor, I believe it was. But in the meantime, it looks like a lot of the partnerships are just referral only. I would like to see them partner with some other folks that are gonna, add to the, how can I say, add to the functionality of what they're trying to accomplish. So I saw where we gave them 5,000 before, and I would recommend that we give them 5,000 again. My score was 80%, but again, I would like to think that they could refine some of the goals and articulate them more, and perhaps eliminate some until they get to the extent that they can really accomplish what they, would like to. So again, I rated them at 80%, and I recommend funding at the previous level of 5,000.
Dr. O'Neill, did you say that you want to fund at the current level or at what they requested?
Somewhere between 5,000 and 35,000. I may go 20 because there's such a need for it right now.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people that cannot afford to go for mental health counseling. And so I would go between 5 and 20. I'll say 20. Can you come up, meet me a little bit, Ms. Burt?
Sure, I could go to, again, anywhere, maybe 10, maybe
Oh.
10. There is definitely a need. There's definitely a need, but again, I'm kind of concerned about the staffing there. They've got some huge goals, and I just doesn't seem like they've got enough people to do it. And I'm not sure that um they can accomplish all of them until they get better situated with really focusing on some main goals versus the list that they've got, which is pretty
Right.
long list.
And based on the number of people that they served last year, it's somewhere in the 200 some range. And they didn't have a lot of funding. I'm wondering, how did you do this
Right,
with the money
exactly.
that you have, and were you, did you're right, did you have the appropriate staff in there doing mental health counseling? Okay, so let's put 10.
10,000, okay,
Yes.
all right. Our next application is Eureka Ministries, and that was reviewed by Dr. O'Neill.
Right. Okay, so I gave them a 91. I thought it was, it's good. It was good what they did. They didn't provide enough detail. Um, there's no change in the number of participants since 2020, and that's showing in C5, not showing growth to me. However, the ex-offender population continue to grow, and did not show how they're going to grow, and they merged with Men's Bridges. So I'm still seeing the same number of participants. Again, I'm basing off of what they've done in the past. I think at $20,000, $20,000 will be okay. But I need to see some growth. That same 36 numbers been there for years. And
Yeah.
you're merging with another organization, so I should have seen some growth. So I recommend the 20.
20,000. Okay.
Right.
Let's see. Next, we would have My Brother's Second Chance, which
Mhm.
was reviewed by Jacqueline Burns and
Yes.
Shannon Little.
Yes, well, you want to go first, Ms.
No,
Jacqueline?
that's fine. Go ahead, baby.
I give it a 96. I did review it, and one of the things that I really liked was the fact that, they decided to focus on one school, and that school, that relationship that they built was with Carver High School. So I thought that, because that has one of the highest truancy rate, that school has one of the highest truancy rates. And I thought that funding them and giving them, such a good score would help them in order to, with their goals and their initiatives, to one-on-one mentor and intervene with children who are, at a disadvantage when it comes down to their educational goals.
Okay, and I scored them, my brother's second chance, 92. We definitely need the mentoring programs for our schools, and it's focusing on youth development, employability skills, job readiness, violence, gang prevention. And what struck me most was the sexual promiscuity idea that they're going to talk to these guys and, these individuals. That's the first time I've seen this challenge in a proposal. And I thought that was top notch. That's what led me to, not so much on the strength of the proposal, but I know what they're doing is good. Yeah. And it's right. And the challenges that they have in helping the school system, whatever we can do to help our school system, I'm all for it. And so I said full funding.
That's great. And I think a lack of education is what we, are lacking there. And the fact that they want to educate them on sexuality, promiscuity, getting themselves sexually aware in life, period. I think that's part of the mental development growth.
Yes.
So are you saying that you want to fund them at the $15,000 request or at the $5,000 that they currently receive?
The 15,000 requests for me.
For
What
me,
about you, Ms. Lou?
for me as well, the 15,000 request.
Okay. And let's see, our next is Piedmont Triad Regional Council. That was scored by Ms. Burton.
I had that too.
Okay. I was impressed that, again, me being new, that this has been around since 1968. If the funds are available, I recommend at 100%. This year's request is an increase in the operating expenses to provide more goods and provisions and basic needs for the folks that they serve. And the increase is definitely going to be necessary because, as you all know, everything now costs more than it used to. One of the things that did concern me, though, was the city score versus how I felt about it. Is there a backstory or something I'm not aware of, Renee?
Let's see, the one staff member said, I recommend funding. However, I would prefer to see more information about sustainability versus just relying on City of Winston-Salem funding.
Okay,
Right.
that's fair.
And the other reviewer did not give any comments.
Okay, this is Barbara. I said recommend at previous funding level. The program will only increase services to 10 people more than the previous year. The budget does not clearly delineate the average amount spent on services for each participant. The salary for the project coordinator appears to be unreasonably high. More detail was needed for me to determine if the money being requested will go towards client services or just operational costs. Because with what they're asking for, like, what is your per participant cost? Because I'm not seeing that, but I will suggest, because of the work that they do, that we fund them at the $15,000.
The 15,000, okay. All right. The Southside Rides, that was scored by Dr. O'Neill.
Yeah. This has always been my favorite proposal. I gave them 100 and funding for the current request of 30,000. I think that this program is giving re-entry participants some valuable skills. I would like to hear some, in the future, some success stories who went on to actually have a really successful car repair business or doing well in this. So, but it's a good proposal and good program.
So you would like to fund at the requested amount
Yes.
of 30,000, okay? Let's see. The Well Center, Ms. Burns and Ms. Little reviewed those.
You can go first, Ms. Burns.
All right. The Wellness Center, I thought was a pretty good proposal. And they have an extensive partnership, because I counted them, there's over 13 of them, which says they're doing something right, pulling in all the, folk who are part of that network and working with it. And we're talking about a post-release program for women to reduce the recidivism of women offenders, which normally is an underserved population of people. Continuing the mentoring program, and they want to hire a part-time director to serve, to operate the CATCH program to serve 220 released women offenders. And I was just wondering, is that a year? Is that in a year? Is this a high rate of women in incarceration? But I do believe that it is. And they have said that they have recruited some volunteers to help with the mentoring program, 16 new folk. So I recommended the full funding, 100% funding for $5,000 for the women in transition. I just think it's much needed.
And I believe that a lot of women who are incarcerated, one of the things that they do lack is resources when they do get out. So they end up going back into the same habits and the performances that got them in, jail or prison in the first place. So I think that once from this right here, jail or prison, one of the things that they said is that they want to change like their thinking, a positive change in the criminal thinking and psychological adjustment. So one thing, we're all women, majority of us are women. And one of the things that we know is that our psyche plays very important, on our day-to-day lives, our day-to-day stability. And if you can't, channel that, and you can't mentally get to a place to where you're okay, at least, you can't function on a day-to-day on a normal basis. So that mentorship and that guidance is something that they're going to really need in order to readapt back to society. Whether it be 2 weeks, whether it be, an extensive amount of time, that does play a huge effect on the psyche. I did rate it at 93. Some parts of it I didn't understand until I went back a couple more times and read it. But I do believe that we should fund them at the $5,000 that they have requested.
Let's see. Our next is the YWCA. And Ms. Burton and Ms. Holmes were the reviewers for it.
Yes, they had indicated that the funds that they're requesting, which is this additional 34,000 and some odd dollars, was going to be to support a new staff person. It looks like they plan on a 50% increase in the number of the women that they, have currently served. And I was impressed with some of the strategic changes that they've made, in particular, some of the things that they've done to minimize staff turnover. Well, we've all been through a difficult, last 2 years with COVID, trying to keep staff and then trying to keep, get people to come to work. And they've made some changes and anticipate that some of these changes will sort of settle that down, along with hiring of this additional person. I was also impressed in fact, new news to me, that it's the only state licensed residential recovery facility in Forsyth County for women that are diagnosed with substance use disorder. And if, I'm understanding and believing everything I read in the news, during this last 2 years, substance abuse has increased all the way around. So I think that this additional $34,660, should help offset some of their costs for the next fiscal year. And hopefully they will be able to get staffing stabilized, and also provide an additional 50% increase in the number of clients that they're serving. So I gave them 100%. And again, if, when you compare it to the city staff score, Renee, is there anything that I may not have picked up on?
The one reviewer said the applicant did not state its goals and objectives. There was barely any local data provided to demonstrate need. Applicant did not specifically mention how its program will benefit City of Winston-Salem and its citizens. Applicants mentioned that other expenditures, sorry about that, other expenditures, having a little trouble here. Okay, applicant mentioned that other expenditures were program-related expenses. There should be more information of what is considered program-related. Finally, a barrier shouldn't simply be not having the funding. It is not the strongest application, but organization is well established and has given thought on how to make it better in light of current pandemic, etc.
Okay, Ms. Holmes, did you have any comments?
Yes, ma'am. I agreed with a lot of what you had shared as it relates to salaries, as has been stated, because of the conditions that we're in right now as a country with COVID and everything. Finding qualified staff is hard right now, and noticing that it did say that this is the only state licensed facility, to me, that would mean I would hope that qualified and well-trained staff would be acquired with this salary increase that they're asking for to assist these women as they are being equipped to return back to society. So I agreed with funding the project.
At what amount would you both like to fund the
I
applicant?
think I said 100%, I think.
And I said 100 as well. And of course, it's based on the funding is available.
Okay, so the requested amount, I just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
So normally, Renee, we gave the $5,000 if the applicant didn't have all the appropriate documents in.
Mhm.
So they requested 5,000 again, which I didn't have access to this application. So I'm wondering, did you request another 5,000 because you still are not have all your documents in to make you qualified?
Now, Barbara, which one are you talking about?
The Well Center.
Oh, you're back to the Well Center. Okay, okay.
Okay, did we go on to YWCA?
Yes, that's the one we were talking about. That's why I got confused.
Okay, I was lost there for a minute. Okay, good.
All right. That is the end of our Soar applications. We did not have any new applicants for the upcoming fiscal year.
Okay. So, okay, team, we finished another successful review, and I thank you all for your very insightful comments. Today, it shows that you're really putting in some work and reading these applications and, you know, picking out the pieces. So as a reminder, our next meeting will be held on Friday, March 18th, and we will finalize recommendations for Housing Finance Fund and discuss new applications for general fund. And I'm sure that they will be coming to you soon. Are there any questions, comments, or any other business that we need to handle before we adjourn the meeting? All right. If there are no further business before this committee, this meeting is adjourned.
All right.